This is a video of some of the processions that were going on in Spain during our Rick Steves Spring 2019 visit there. They're basically three towns: Arcos, Granada, and Seville. Although it wasn't specifically planned, and it was definitely an extra thing to work around because of all the number of people that come into the city and the crowds and the processions themselves, but it was definitely different. It's actually impossible to get all of them, even in the same town and city, because there are multiple processions going on at the same time. The week starts with Palm Sunday, which is also known as Passion Sunday. Spain is a heavily Catholic country, and you will notice different colors within the same processions, and that's because they represent different brotherhoods that are in the communities. These associations actually have their origins in the Middle Ages, but a number of them were created during the Baroque period. The membership is usually open to any Catholic person, and a family tradition is actually an important element to becoming a member or a brother. Although the term brother is used, you will notice there are many women in these processions and in these brotherhoods. Yep. You'll notice that some of these candles are bigger than the kids who are carrying them. I think everybody in town is here. Some of the marchers will occasionally tip the candles. That will allow the melted wax to drip out onto the street. That's why in some of the other videos I mention all the wax on the streets, making the car tires squeak and squeal. But some of the marchers will also wear a single glove that has nothing to do with imitating Michael Jackson, but has to do with letting that hot wax drip over their hands without actually burning them. You'll also notice that when the procession stops, some of the participants will look up to the sky, and that's because during these processions, there were times it was starting to rain, and that's a major concern to these people because these floats cannot get wet. You can see that the people carrying these floats cannot see where they're going. They rely totally on the directions of the person in front of the float. They have a clicker on the front of the base that you can sometimes hear even over the music in the crowds. This tells the carriers when to stop and drop the float and when to pick it up. They all have to be in sync in order to not tip these extremely heavy floats with life-size models of different scenes from the Gospels. These people, men and women, practice all year for this 1 week. There is a huge waiting list, and all the communities to be honored are carrying these floats on their shoulders. This is also why they get so upset when it looks like it's going to rain, which in some places it did because, as I stated, these floats cannot get wet. Okay. These processions may start in different locations within a community, but they all end up at the same place, at the cathedrals. The procession that we saw in Seville was definitely the fanciest of the ones that we happened to catch. Even though the one in Granada was really nice, this one was fancier. The garments worn have their roots in medieval times in Spain. The pointed hat, and I know I'm not going to say this correctly, called a capriote, was originally worn by clowns and jugglers who wanted to portray clumsiness and stupidity. I mean, their job was to make people laugh. Because of this representation of the clumsiness and the stupidity, these pointed hats were then used when tormenting criminals who were forced to wear these pointed hats and walk through the streets. And while they were walking through the streets, people were throwing rotten vegetables at them, insulting them, and spitting on them. Later, during the celebration of the Holy Week, or Semana Santa, the penitents, which are the people doing penance by walking in these processions, would walk through the streets wearing the same style of pointed hats. This would demonstrate their humility and their foolishness and things they had done in their life and their sinfulness, and it was sort of a way of self-injury. And although they covered their faces so they wouldn't be recognized, they still felt like they were doing the penance. And I have no idea if garbage was being thrown at them at the time. But some of them would even flog themselves as penance for their sins. Sometime between 1812 and 1819, the Spanish Romantic painter Francisco Goya vividly documented a more brutal rehearsal of such a procession, one in which excruciating physical penance was publicly observed by these pious participants, whose backs were whipped until they were bloody. And although such harrowing displays of abuse had been banned in Spain since 1777, Goya's A Procession of Flagellants suggests how undiminished this ritual urge remained well into the 19th century. All in all, it was a pretty unique experience because it was strictly by accident to be here at this particular time. And it's amazing that there are so many processions going on at the same time. There's a lot of effort that goes into this. And you try running between the different processions just to see a piece of a couple of them. But sometimes you just got to settle for what you get.